Hi guys, welcome back to our Maine Homestead and the first in a series of basically an open and honest conversation about homeschooling. So I was lucky enough to gather 5 ladies that I personally know from our local Northern Maine homeschool group to get together and just chat about all things homeschool. So I really hope you guys enjoy it. I can tell you from personal experience as somebody who does not homeschool yet and who doesn't know very much about it, it was really interesting to listen to these ladies chit chat about homeschooling and how it varies from household to household, child to child, and then how a lot of it is similar within each household. So it was a really cool conversation, and I enjoyed basically being like a fly on the wall, or kind of like you right now, just being a viewer, and just getting all of that really great knowledge and insight into what homeschooling looks like. So I'm going to talk about briefly what you can expect to see in episode 1, which is going to be basically meeting the moms, learning about when and why they started homeschooling. We're going to talk about any prior experience with teaching or any prior education that helped them be the homeschool teacher that they are. And a lot of them, you will see in this video, do not have any experience or background in education or teaching. So it's really interesting. And then another thing we're going to talk about is the different homeschool styles and methods that each of the moms use. And funny enough, each of them do something different. So it was really cool to hear about all the different styles and methods and what, like I said, what works for one household to another. So I'm going to timestamp all of those topics of conversation in the video description so that if you do want to listen to something specific in this video, you can jump right to that topic. Or you could just be like me, and I'm going to watch it all over again because I really enjoyed listening to these moms. So enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to be notified each time one of these new episodes comes out on homeschooling. There will be several. But yeah, enjoy this video and let me know if you guys have any comments or questions about it, and I will get back to you as soon as possible on each question. And then at the end of every video, you can expect to see what will be discussed in the next episode. Enjoy! All right, so if we can just go around the table, I'll start with Kim. If you'll just share your name and then when you started homeschooling and why you began homeschooling, why you chose to do that.
My name is Kim Coker, and I started homeschooling in 2017. Would have been the end of that school year, so basically June of 2017 I started homeschooling. Why? Because 2 reasons. One, I was leaving my community. I was moving out of state and losing that support system. We had found a great public school that we really enjoyed, but I recognized after that was our 3rd school that we attended that if we ever left, I would homeschool. And the biggest reason for that was I wanted my children to have a better education. So.
All right. My name is Tina Simpson, and I have been homeschooling since 1997. I have 6 kids, and when my oldest daughter was a year old, I felt that that's what the Lord was calling me to do, and I honestly thought that he was really kidding. But he wasn't, and here we are. We're still homeschooling, and that really is it.
I'm Carmen Martinez. I started homeschooling in approximately 2009-2010. My son is actually a 2nd generation homeschooler. I never been to public school, and so I figured my parents made that sacrifice for me to be homeschooled. I didn't want to throw him into a school system that I'd heard a bunch of not so nice things. So hoping for a 3rd generation at some point.
I'm Roxanne. I started homeschooling in 2011-2012 because the public school did us wrong, and we were military and moved a lot. So it's really hard going from place to place to place with your kids when every teacher treats them differently and they're hyperactive, so they get put out in the hall a lot because they're never in the same place the other kids are at the same time.
I'm Kelly, and I started homeschooling in August of 2018 because we were moving out of state and I didn't know where we were going to be and what kind of schools we had. So we went from charter school to homeschool.
Okay. Very good. So I'll direct this to Tina first. Before homeschooling, did you have any education or prior experience with teaching?
Absolutely not. I was not a very happy student when I was in school. Skipped school a lot, and I quit in the 9th grade. And so when I felt the Lord was calling me to homeschool, I really thought, this is not possible, because surely everybody else has much more in this than I do. But amazingly, it just occurred that, you know, the Lord just kept putting people into our path that homeschooled, that helped mentor me. And by the time it came about that Sarah started actually homeschooling, I realized that I was already homeschooling, just with the normal teaching your colors and teaching her to read and how to color in the lines, and I was already doing that, and so it was just a natural progression. I kind of figured, well, I can do kindergarten, and surely, you know, you know, I mean, anybody can do kindergarten, right? You know, even me. And then it was just, I just fell in love with it. You know, I enjoyed being with my children,
And you're good at it.
and well,
I'm really
I mean,
good at it.
they're all still alive.
Success! How many kids do you have, and how many have already gone on to college? Like, you are a success story.
I have 6 kids. My oldest has gone on, she graduated and went to a 4-year Christian college. Daughter number 2 went to community college. Number 3, my son, he went to trade school. So Emma decided that she didn't want to go to college, and that's okay too. We've never pushed any of our children to go to college. If they want to go, we are there to help them in any way we can, but we never push them to go. And then Levi, he is planning to go to lineman school in down in Georgia. Yeah, and that's what he wants to do. And so we're here to help them and support them, and we want them to be successful. We've always told them, we are your biggest fans, our parents. You know, who else is gonna
Cheer you on.
Yeah,
That's right.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any teaching or any sort of like education experience with teaching?
My parents used to run staff curriculum, and it's so condensed. You know, I mean, you're learning diagramming in 2nd grade and, you know, all that kind of thing. I used to belong to the Church of Yahweh Hoshua in Boone, Colorado. Technically a cult, I guess is what it's listed as now. Back in the day, you know. There's actually a book on it. And in the church school, I taught 4 years of that curriculum. So it was so much easier to grasp things as an adult versus, you know, learning all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, wow, this is easy, you know. So then what we had kind of tweaked it to incorporating everything into everyday stuff. We take the kids out and build toolboxes, or, you know, we sew with the girls, you know, you learn your fractions and your decimals, and, you know, and cooking projects and building projects, and, you know. So I was probably 19 years old to 22 when I was teaching school, 24. So I felt I had a good foundation, and then I took my GED when I went back to Colorado because I taught in Missouri. I had the highest score that they had come through for GED. So I figured if I did that, you know, and my mom dropped out of school, 9th grade. My dad was a high school graduate, but, you know, my mom was a primary teacher, so I was like, I got this. If I made it through, my son will make it through. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
I started teaching in 10th grade other students for the music teacher, because I was an accelerated music student, so I would go to the 4th, 5th grade, teach them. Then I went to my bachelor's program for education, so I took a bunch of education classes there. Then I had the, we'll say, privilege of teaching in a public school and decided that I couldn't be a teacher. Because I got my first big argument with another teacher was that I rewarded the students for doing what I asked them to do, and apparently that's not what you do when students do what you ask them to do. So, needless to say,
Interesting.
I did not graduate with an education degree because after that experience, it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Huh.
I don't think I could ever be a teacher in public school.
It's hard. Like, it was something so simple. They had 3 pieces of music to learn, and I was like, if you can do this in the 5 days we have together, I'll give you half an hour the last day to just run around and be stupid. Whatever you want to do, I don't care. They had it memorized the second day. And so, like, they stayed through lunch. Yeah, they stayed through every break. They stayed through lunch. They were there afterwards with me tutoring them. They were like dedicated. Those kids were hardcore. By day 3, I'm like, all right, let's go run around the field for a little while, play touch football. Let's go have fun.
Yeah.
And that teacher was like, you can't do that. Why?
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 Never mind the homeschool.
Yes.
Why,
Yes.
why can't I do it this way? Why can't they learn this way?
I will direct this to Tom. Can you tell us a little bit about your homeschool style or method that you use,
I'm very
if
unschooled.
any? Okay. Unschool. Okay.
I tried with the curriculum, the books and stuff like that with my son, but it seemed like he would get more upset trying to have to sit there and do stuff. So it was more incorporating stuff. As he got older, there was definitely more structure. And as a dual parent, working 40 hours a week, you know, varied hours, during my breaks, I'd call him and we'd do a spelling test. I'd print off lists and, you know, I'd do spelling over the phone, you know. So we would do those weekly, or he'd have to read books. We've read like all the Magic Tree House and Chronicles of Narnia and all these different things, and have him do book reports, which he's not too big. He doesn't care for writing. I mean, you know, but that was what he seemed to enjoy. You know, if I found books that he liked, then it was easy for him to explain. Then as he got older, we kind of let him do digital. You know, he could record his stuff.
And we're all very different. So I do schooling through gaming. And when they were little, it was very, very structured. Like, oh my gosh, structured, insane. Now it's like, okay, here's your game, go have fun. Like, and the best part is, my kids are doing, you know, multiplication and division faster than everyone else mid-game. They're like, oh yeah, I rolled 6 dice, I got this many numbers, kid, the answer is this. And like, they don't even, there's no pausing to count, there's no nothing. They've rolled the dice so many times, they see the number, they go, that's the answer. Like, which I think is awesome. I don't know what they'll ever use it for. But
But it's a fun moment whenever it's all to the table goes.
yeah. Dude, my daughter was 14 and an adult was playing the game with her. Magic the Gathering. It's a hard game. You have tons of cards, 100 of them. You're doing all these mathematical calculations. The game was designed by a doctorate in mathematician. Like, it's a hard game. She kicked his butt, wiped him out. He came down and had to get a cigarette because he was so stressed out. You're
getting hustled by a 14-year-old girl.
yeah, it was glorious. And you know, and she had the experience of everyone coming to sit at her table to learn from her how she was doing what she was doing. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
Cool.
I'm pretty eclectic. We do some Charlotte Mason, like Tina does. Very classical, some like traditional, here's your workbook and just do your thing. But we really are pretty varied on what I'm not quite unschooling. That makes me slightly uncomfortable because I'm a little bit of a control freak.
Don't play games.
The name of every game is
Kelly
wins.
I do have him use the academic excellence test at the end of the year to gauge where he's at, you know.
Yeah.
And for his science stuff, he's had a job with the Holton Metamalloseats in their Natural Resources Department. So he was helping clip salmon tails to make phylogenetic fish. So he's learning like all this stuff, you know, here and there.
Cool.
Yeah.
And like they got him a ticket and everything to go to the North Atlantic salmon gala next Saturday.
He took my
Class.
U.S. government class, and he was telling me his job, and I was just like,
I'm not sure what I'm going to teach you. And he's had that since he was 14, so you know he's working throughout the state of Maine with all kinds of stuff. So
And Kim's very different, so is Tina too from us.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and share.
My homeschooling style is we do 2 hours of seat work, and I use the Common Core curriculum that public schools use. I use all the workbooks that, it started off as kind of a natural progression. Again, my change from public school to homeschool was very sudden, very abrupt, and in the midst of a moving chaos. So I knew that these are the books my kids are using in school. Until I figure out something else, this is what I'm going to use. Because they're already doing that at school. Good enough, that's a good place to start. And we're at year number 5, and I still use those same workbooks. I still go, and I use them in part because they're super cheap.
Yeah.
They're like $4 a workbook, and depending on what subjects I need, we focus on math and reading, especially in the very earliest years. And you add the subjects as they are growing up and progressing, but our seat work really is limited to a 2-hour time frame, and that's it. The rest of like all of your other learning, because I don't think you ever really clock out. At least in our house, we don't. There is always an activity. There is always something we're doing, discussing, changing, learning, improving. But our very basics, I use Common Core because I don't have to teach it. Here's your book. Go to your room.
Yes.
I have 6 of you. I
independent
love
learning.
you. And if you have a question, read the question again.
Yeah.
And if you have another question and you still don't understand the problem, read it again. You're not reading it right. This is a reading comprehension problem, and you need to work on it. Okay, the next step is let's find the next answer. So it's an entirely independent process where very first day of homeschooling, I told all the kids, you can absolutely cheat at this.
Yes.
You can write down every right answer. You can look everything up on Google, whatever. The only person you're cheating is yourself. That's it. And I know all this stuff. I don't need to do it again. But you don't. And if you cheat, and if you just write down the answers, yeah, that's up to you. But you gotta live with yourself, and you're still not going to know it. So at some point, you're gonna have to go back and do it again.
I took all the answers out of the back of the book, but I'm like, go where you were. Go ahead, go back and look at the previous lessons.
Yeah.
I don't care if you copy from that, because you're
Right.
still going back into it and learning from it.
Is,
Go ahead.
does our school, so in Pennsylvania, they would let you have copies of the same books the kids in the public school had for free. That's not a Maine thing?
Don't know, never asked.
Okay.
I'm not really tied in with the school system.
I've never asked either.
I've asked for a few extracurricular stuff, but I've never reached out for curriculum based. I used the book that our last school in Colorado was the 3rd best school in the state. It was also one of the smallest. It was K through 12, 100 kids out in the middle of literally nowhere, Colorado, and Edison, Colorado, in the plains, and they consistently ranked in the top 3 for decades. It's like, well, you have a very, very small margin of error here. What are you doing well? So, okay, these are the things you're doing well, and that's the book you used.
Then that makes sense.
Okay, we'll try that one.
Yeah.
So, it's worked for us so far. We do standardized tests at the end of every year. In Maine, you have to do, you have to prove that you've been teaching your child. So you can do a portfolio review,
Teacher
a standardized test, or a teacher review.
Or be in an umbrella school.
Yes.
Me.
or
Like, yeah.
completely off the grid.
Or
We do not mention those things.
So we do a
None of our
standardized
business.
test every year. It's about $20. And part of the reason I chose the curriculum I did is I'm cheap. I've looked at the curriculums. A
Oh my
lot of
gosh.
the curriculums are just hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and then you need the extra supplies with it. And I'm like, or I can go onto thrift books, and that book's $4, and that's an entire year. Okay.
Did you share yet your style?
No.
Okay.
No, I was public schooled, and so when I started homeschooling, that was really my only
Point of reference.
yeah, my only point of reference, my only experience. So, so when I started homeschooling, I got a whole box. Everything was in it, and I realized real quick that I like this, but I didn't like that. And this, a couple years down the road, I realized, oh, that doesn't really work the way I thought it would. So I'm going to tweak it, and I, I kind of stayed with that. Becca. Read the chapter, answer the question, do the quiz, do the test. I stuck with that for a little while. It worked beautifully with my 2 older children, but when my oldest son came along, it was a screeching halt.
Boys.
Because he was not going to read that. If you are familiar with the Becca curriculum at all, it is a lot of reading. There is a lot of information that you have to memorize. It's good curriculum, don't get me wrong. It's really good. It's rich, but it's a lot. And it's also very expensive too. You have to have, for every book, you have to have a book, you have to have a teacher book, and then you have to have a quiz book, you have to have a teacher manual for that, you have to have textbook, math book, math.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 5, 8, 10 parts, to every single subject.
But if that's how you learn.
And that's how, I mean, it was great for Sarah and for Elizabeth, but Michael just could not keep up with that. I mean, it was too much. And so I started asking friends, what do you use? And there was a homeschool mom in our group who she was a Charlotte Mason mom, and she said, I'm going to do a workshop on Charlotte Mason style. And it was like, okay, well, I'll check it out, and see. And I went, and I was like, there's no way this is going to work. Because basically, Charlotte Mason is, you 15 minutes, and then move on, For small children, for older children, a little bit more. But, start out with about 15 minutes on each subject and move on. And then move to being outside and observations and reading and drawing and whatever.
Being a kid.
Yeah. So I'm like, there's no way this is going to work. So I had decided that and she was sure that it would. And I said, okay, fine. The next year I tested it on just something that I didn't really incorporate into our day. I just tried it on like art, formal art. And so I used, their packaged little curriculum that they had for Simply Charlotte Mason. And it was basically, okay, we're going to take this piece of art, this picture, and we're going to study it, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to 15 minutes. I set the timer. 15 minutes. We're going to talk about it, and then the next day we're going to look at it, and we're going to paint that painting. And then as we're doing this, though, we're learning about the artist, and maybe we'll do a little IEW report on that artist. So there was all of these little things like that, and I just decided that I would try it, and that's what we did. And lo and behold, it was like, okay, at the end of the week, we sat down and we were like, okay, let's tell us what you know about, this artist. And holy cow, we're spouting off crap left and right. And I'm like, all right, this is okay, this is perfect. And my son too, I mean, he was like, oh yeah, he cut his ear off, and he did this, and he was crazy. And then the cool thing was throughout the year, we tried that at the beginning of the year, but I would notice like in the middle of the year, the kids would be somewhere like on a field trip or something, and they would be like, oh, that's a Van Gogh painting. What? Oh yeah, because you can tell. It's style. Really? Great. And I'm like, oh man, maybe they have something here.
Yes.
That's exactly it. Did I do that? That's when you go back to, okay, something's happening here. But, you know, what I realized was, okay, this works for this, and, you know, I'm kind of, you know, cautious, and get in there and test it. So it was like, okay, well, let's see if it works for this or that. And what I realized with my son is it was less information all at once. But at the end of the year, he retained more than giving him all of that a Becca would give. It's like, oh my goodness, you would just learn every single bone in the body and all of this. And it was great for Sarah, but not for Michael.